Okay, so here we have the Mitel MiContact Center Office 6.2, which is our latest release of software. There's a few screens to go through. Really, it's broken down into 3 different modules. The first screen that we're looking at here is what we call our Real Viewer. So on here, I'm looking at real-time information that might be happening within your business. Now here we can monitor individual extensions, we can monitor hunt groups, we can monitor departments. All the information you see on the screen here is very, very customizable, and we can have as many or as few what we call tiles on here as you want to. Here I've just got 9 possible statistics on there, and really on here it's about what you want to see on the screen. So things such as how many calls have I got waiting for this particular hunt group or this particular department, how many agents have I got free to be able to take calls, how many are busy. So there's a whole multitude of different stats you can put on there, and it's really, really easy to control. If I just right click anywhere on the screen, I can click on Add Tile, and the second box then pops up and it tells me to choose the piece of information I wish to display. I can click on the placeholder, and here I get access to a whole multitude of different statistics that I might want to put on the screen. Again, this is real-time information. So the first option is Call Totals. So here we're looking at total calls. Again, this could be for a particular hunt group, department, whatever it may be, sales, service, marketing, etc. You may want to look at total inbound calls. You may want to be monitoring total outbound calls. It may be lost calls. You might want to look at how quickly you'll be able to answer calls. So up here we've got some stats on answering calls within certain time periods, less than 5, 15, 30 or 60 seconds, or when are we losing our calls. So this is just call totals on here. Next one down, we've got active call statistics. So how many calls have I currently got waiting? Now we can also look at introducing email or multimedia into the contact center as well. So I'll touch on this a little bit later. Scroll down, we've got percentage of call totals as well. You may want to look at your service level agreement for today. Scroll down, we've got call time. So what's our longest waiting call for today? What's your total ring time or total talk time for today? Or how long are we keeping our customers waiting for before they get connected? Scroll down once more. Agent statistics. So again, how many agents have I got logged in? How many of those are currently free to be able to take calls? How many of those are in busy? How many of those are dealing with emails? And then we've got some various other statistics as well, which you may want to put up on the screen. Current day, date, time, etc. All of the colours can all be customised, which cancel out of there. So it's just a selection that we've chosen to put on the screen. You can customise the colours however you want to. You can also put alarms and thresholds on there as well. So my calls waiting there, for example, I need to know when that reaches a certain threshold. So maybe when you get more than 20 calls in the queue, do something to the tile, make it flash. We can play a sound if you want to. If I just right click on that tile, I can go into the properties, into the appearance, and I've got alarm settings. So I can very, very easily set a threshold on there. At the minute it's set to when this gets to greater than or equal to 2 calls in the queue, flash the tile. So we just have a look at that. If I put a couple of calls into the queue, you can now see the tile start to flash. So immediately you're aware that something is not quite right in the contact center. And there you can see the real-time stats changing. So it's just alerting you to the fact that something maybe isn't quite right. It may be when your logged in agents gets down to a certain threshold to do something. Maybe you need to log in some more agents. Or maybe a longest waiting call has got to a certain time. Do something. Tell me that something's not quite right in the contact center. So this screen is very, very customizable. So you can have as many tiles on here as you want to. I just right click, add tile. You see them all bunch up again. So you can have as many on there as you want to. The idea really with this is displaying key information. Having a quick glance at it from an agent perspective or supervisor, you can see, maybe on a plasma screen somewhere, you can see very quickly key information. If I'm an agent, I'm on my break, I can see 20 calls in the queue, the tile's flashing, maybe I look at it and say, actually, I'll log in and take some calls now. So that's what we call our real viewer. Again, you can customize all the colors on there if you want to as well. The next screen is more of our supervisor's screen. So on here we can display exactly the same information as what you've just seen. So I've got my tiles across the screen here. So I'm looking at calls waiting, longest waiting calls, how many agents I've got logged in. This is also a virtual wall space on here, so I get access to put in a lot more information on there. If I just move that across, you've got a virtual wall space. So loads and loads of information we can store on this screen. If I have got any alarms or thresholds and one of them activates, it will snap to the center of the screen so you know where your alarms are. On here I can also display the same information but differently. So if you look in the top right hand corner, I've got more text-based information. I can also maximize that key tile out. And again, the information here can be customized. It's just a different way of looking at that information. You may want to look at some charts or graphs. So on here we've got a small graph. This also becomes interactive. So as a supervisor in the contact center, I can see here my agent list. I can see I've got 2 agents logged in and their banners are green. Anytime they change status, those banners will change. As a supervisor, I've also got the option to be able to control those agents as well. So I can left click on here and now I get the option to log an agent in, log an agent out. I could put them into a busy status if I wanted to. If I put them into a busy status, what you'll see is their banner turns blue. So now they're busy, otherwise unavailable to take calls. Likewise, on the flip side, if my contact center is now busy, I've got 20 plus calls in the queue, I need somebody to answer it. There's my agent, he's currently on Make Busy. I can click on here and enter the free state. I'll change green, he's now available to take calls again. I've also got on the bottom here the option to look at incoming calls. So if I place another call into the queue, I can see that call coming in. So as a supervisor, I could left click on here, I could steal that call. Maybe it's been kept in the queue for too long, I'll steal the call myself. I could also send that call somewhere else if I wanted to. So you get a little bit of notification about calls and you get some control over where they go. Not something you'd want to do all the time. If you're doing that too much of the time, then there's something not quite right set up in your contact center. Maybe there's some call routing that needs to be adjusted. But a good option for a supervisor. So that's your real-time screen. Again, displaying exactly the same information what you saw in the real viewer. You can display graphs and charts, also text-based information, and you've got that control over the agents as well. And as well as that, you've got control over some of the calls coming in. On the next screen, we can look at historical reporting. So here, depending on which version you've got, there are different versions available. You get access to a lot of different reports in here. These are all your historical reports. There are some really good reports in here. This first report we're looking at here is a call list report. So this lists every single call that's come in or gone out of the organisation. Again, we can apply those filters. So rather than look at every single call that's come in or gone out, at the top right here, I've got a filter button. So I can apply any filter I want to those particular type of reports. It may be you want to look at calls coming in for, again, a particular hunt group, particular department, particular extension. Was it inbound? Was it outbound? There's lots and lots of different types of filters that you may want to apply to these types of reports to get the information that you want to. What this also does, if I look at the call list report here, just take this very top call, it also does call segmentation. So this is a call that's come in, and if we look at the very end column, it tells me it's got 4 segments for this call. So that's where the call has come in, and somebody's answered the call. It's then been transferred several times throughout that business. What we don't want to do is look at 4 individual calls and have to try and find those 4 different calls relating to that one caller. So on here, it's one call that's come in, I've got 4 segments. I can now double click on that particular call, and then I can look into each individual segment of that call. And that gives me information about that caller. So when did it come in? Who answered the call to start with? How long did they talk to that person for? How long did it ring against that extension for? Who did they pass it over onto? Then you can go through and look at the next segment of that call. How long did they speak to the customer for? How long did it ring on their extension for? Who did they pass the call on to? So you can look at each individual segment of that call. If you also couple this up to one of our call recorders, up here we've got the play icon. So we can integrate into our call recorder. Click on play, it will play back that particular segment of the call. So that's just a call list report. Another fairly unique report is this second one here. So this is what we call unreturned lost calls. Unreturned lost calls is really useful. Most call loggers can report on lost calls, which is great, but how do you know if that person's called back in again? Or how do you know if you've called them back? You may have already made contact with the customer, they may not need to speak to you again. With unreturned lost calls, that's where somebody has hung up for whatever reason, they haven't called back in again, and you have not made contact with them. That call will show in here. So that's fairly unique to Mitel. Of course, we can just report on lost calls, and then we've got some other good reports in here as well. So maybe top dialed numbers, or top received numbers, who's calling us most of the time, who are we calling out to most of the time. The next bunch of reports on here are what we call our reporter reports. So they're in addition to the ones you've just seen. Again, some really good information on here. I can look at calls by half an hour, for example. So this will break down all of your calls into half-hour blocks throughout the day. So I can see when my most busiest times are, or when I'm taking calls at certain times of the day. I can filter this by calls in. So if I click on calls in, I now know between 3 and 3:30, that's my most busiest time of day. It may well be that that's when I've got the least amount of people on to take the calls. I could also filter it by average talk time. So I now know between 2 and 2:30 in the morning, and in this report, my average talk time has gone up. It might be I've got a new starter, or it might be that people need some extra training. So you can draw some quite quick analytics from here. Other reports in here, I can look at call summaries for the day, I can look at call summaries for the week, or for the month. This just gives me some very basic information. How many calls am I taking? Inbound, outbound, what's our average talk time? What's our total talk time? So again, I can look at call summaries for the day, for the week, for the month. I can also look at calls by DDI number, which is really useful. It might be that you're doing a marketing campaign and you've published a DDI number, and you need to know how many calls you're getting against that DDI number. Or it might be you've got lots of DDI numbers spread throughout the business, and you need to know which ones are making you most money. So on here, this calls by DDI number, I can see exactly that. I know how many calls I'm getting in against each one of those numbers. I can also look at calls by account code. Again, it might be you're doing a marketing campaign. You need to know what type of calls are coming in. So when your agent grabs that call, they can tag that particular call with an account code. Then you can run a report on it. It might be that you need to know how many calls you've had against product X, or how many calls you've had against product Y. Once I've tagged that call, I can then run this report, and I can see exactly how many calls I've had against product X or product Y. So that's calls by account code. If I just scroll down, at the very bottom here, I can look at my agent types of reports. So calls by agent. So I can now see a list of all my agents and how many calls they've handled. Inbound, whether you're an outbound contact center, I can see how many outbound calls they've made. Not only by agents, again, I can look at for extensions as well. So this tool is for monitoring all your lines, all your extensions, and your agents. So I can look at all my extensions as well, back office staff, for example. I can also look at do not disturb status by agents, so how many times they put themselves into do not disturb, or what codes are they using. We can also integrate into emails as well. So with email, we treat it in exactly the same way as we treat a voice call. We can deliver it to longest idle agents. Then your email then becomes part of the contact centre. And we can report on it both in real time and historically as well. So rather than an elected person just dealing with emails several times throughout the day, or maybe lots of people are dealing with emails, you might get a mixture of responses with the same email, so a customer might get different responses back. Sometimes an email is worth more than a voice call. So here we can make them part of the contact centre. And I can report on them, so I can see who's dealing with emails for me. How long we've taken to deal with those emails, how many emails are getting in a day, a week, a month. So you can now report on it. All of these reports, I can choose when I want to run them for. So this is just very ad hoc at the seconds. Up the top right-hand corner, I put a little clock. So on there, I can look at reports for today, yesterday, last week, last month. Maybe it's the last 15 minutes you want to grab that information. Or if you've got a particular day, date and time in mind, I can click on custom and then I can choose when I want to run that report. I can also export these reports. So if I click on export, I can export as an Excel spreadsheet, CSV file, Word document. I could publish it to a web page if I wanted to. Or it might be, actually, rather than going here and run a report on an ad hoc basis, you want to schedule a report. So I can click on Auto Reporter and I can set up a report schedule. I just click on New, give the schedule a name, and then you choose when you want to run that report. So it might be every Monday morning at 9 o'clock you want to run that report. So here you choose your day, date and time, and then on the reports page you just add in the reports that you want to have on your desk at that particular time, and you can set it to email you. So that's the Mitel Contact Center Office.